This is our Banding Together series, and today we're joined by Chiara Hughes of Carvana. So welcome, Chiara. We are so happy that you're here. So the goal of Banding Together, like I said, there's a few founding partners and myself. We have Sean Plowman, Christian Kaiser, Nick Morrison, and Sharon Bondurant. And we've been doing this for about 8 weeks. And the whole mission of our Banding Together platform was to help candidates navigate these very tumultuous waters. You and I were just talking, and we've known each other since Y2K, which were different kind of tumultuous waters.
Yeah.
When you think back to that, it was a very different time in the recruiting industry and the recruiting world back in '99. But I am so excited to have you here today to talk about just kind of how candidates can brand themselves, how candidates can stand apart from, the masses right now of people applying for jobs, and some of the things that people just can do to help themselves stand out. So thanks again for being here.
No, happy to be here. I love the vibe behind it. I love you guys, of course. I love the goal. As you mentioned, I have definitely an interesting background. Besides recruiting, one of my personal passions has always been the candidate experience and branding from a company standpoint. So going corporate for me has been like a logical step because the branding thing is a big deal, and I'm always working hard for Carvana branding as an employer and branding. So at Carvana, our people ops team actually has its own brand within Carvana as well. So for me, like branding as an employer is like a big deal, and branding for candidates, and the recruiting team has its own brand at Carvana as well. So it's like, it's important for everybody. And also just given these interesting times right now for candidates who a lot of people have lost their jobs, this is like triple important. So
yeah,
super happy to be here. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, you shared a little bit about your background, but tell us a little bit more about Carvana. I definitely want to get a plug in for what you guys are looking for so that, anyone who watches this now or down the road can reach out and apply for anything that's relevant.
So first I'll say, and this is, I have to actually give this disclaimer. And I'm proud to say it, but also so cheesy. I'm one of those people that I drink the Carvana blue Kool-Aid. I just have to say it. I always have. I worked for a company previous, an agency called Head Farmer, and I loved my job. You know that.
Yep. I
worked for Sean Plowman at Synergy 7 to this day. Probably my favorite boss I've ever had. After again, other than the guys and lady at Head Farmer, and other than Adrian, my current boss, I've been very fortunate to have amazing bosses. You were my boss 15 years ago. I'm very fortunate. So I have to be careful because I do sound like a cheeseball cheerleader. I left Head Farmer. I wasn't ever going to leave. The only company I would have left to join corporate was Carvana, and I did it, right? I love the company. I believe in our mission and how we've handled the whole COVID situation, both internally and externally, the consumer, with such grace and care has solidified, you couldn't pry me out of Carvana with my cold blue Carvana hands. So it's one of those situations where you're gonna have to be careful because it's gonna sound like I'm this cheeseball Carvana cheerleader, but I am. I love the company. As you know, we sell cars online. We were 95% a touchless delivery anyway.
Right.
And now we're the safest way to buy a car. So it worked out that way. So we hire people to run everything. What a lot of people don't know about Carvana is internally, so we are a tech company that happens to sell used cars. So we're run like a normal tech company, like a Amazon or a Wayfair or anything that's an online company. We just happen to sell a 2-ton thing that gets shipped all over the country, right? And so there's a tech component. We have a huge engineering team, a product team, a data science analytics team, an accounting team, a finance team, all the internal corporate stuff. But we also have truck drivers, and we also have inspection centers set up, 7 sites, almost 8 all over the country, where we hire mechanics and line leads and people who pound out dents and people who wash cars. And then we have 2,000 people who just answer the phone when a consumer calls in. So we have a whole call center culture, right? So we have this crazy disparate workforce in terms of duties, geography, and then we have 24 vending machines where you put a token in to get and then we have hubs, 160 plus hubs where they're like a retail store. Like if you walk into a mall and there's like an Apple store where you go to pick up your phone and have a Genius, we have those where you can go pick up a car so you don't want to pay shipping to your door. We have those all over the United States. So our workforce is wildly diverse in terms of how they get paid, when, so that's what people don't know about Carvana. The other thing is, if you look up how many employees we have, depending on where you look it up, it says we might have 3,500 employees. We actually have over 8,800 employees.
Wow.
So Carvana is bigger than people know. We're more widespread than you know, and our workforce is more diverse. So
okay. Now, what are the areas of responsibility that you have? So you oversee corporate and technology, correct?
Yeah, so and corporate and tech at Carvana is everything to do with, again, the corporate stuff like accounting, finance, like anything that you would think of normal. And then tech is it technology services, product, engineering, data science, data analytics, anything like that. The other piece, I have a counterpart named Ellen, who's lovely, and she does the operations part, which is like 90% of the business, which is everything to do with inspection centers, logistics, market operations, customer care.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
So clearly, I mean, having the number of years experience that you have, clearly being part of a large corporate organization right now, you know what people can do to stand out. You know what people have done to stand out. So you have a good bench from which to play.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, Chiara, that you have seen? I don't want to focus on mistakes. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
What are some of the positive things? What are some of the things that you've seen candidates do in order to stand out and make themselves more hireable?
Well, so I'll get into like the more general, but I'll tell you it's a little story because to this day it cracks me up, and it's one of my favorite stories because it happened when she applied and she got hired in October of last year, and it cracked me up, and I have to mention it because it's like one of my favorite stories, and she's on my team. So Emily, who's a recruiting coordinator on my Corp Tech team, she applied. She worked at a famous retailer, and she applied for the coordinator position on my team. And I actually copied and pasted it because I didn't want to misquote it. On her cover letter, it says, multitasking is something I personally thrive off of. It's in my DNA. I took a test and it turns out I'm 100% that multitasker. Thanks, Lizzo. That was in her cover letter. and I'm a huge Lizzo fan. So I was like, she either looked it up and found out I'm a huge Lizzo fan, which is not hard to find because it's all over like my stuff. I'm a huge music freak.
Right.
Or it didn't matter to her. That's her thing. And she thought, I'm going to put that in this cover letter, knowing that the dart she threw, she was going to find the team that appreciated that aspect of her personality. And either she was going to get hired somewhere that appreciated the guts or the creativity of that, or she wasn't. And she did. And now she's on our team and we can't imagine life without her. So I loved that she had the guts to do it.
Right.
And it stood out. She quoted Lizzo in a cover letter. Like, I love that. And she's on our team and it's great.
Yeah.
So that stood out, right? I also love anything, and I know this sounds funny, but if I see like Comic Sans fonts on the resume, I'll like lose my mind. And I joke about the font specifically, but a resume really does need to look well thought out.
Yeah.
Clean. Clean. And at Carvana, we really do look at every single resume. Literally every resume gets looked at. The only time it doesn't is if, and I mean, you can believe me or not, I'm not exaggerating. If you apply to a job at Carvana and the only time your resume is not looked at is if we already have identified a candidate since the time that you've applied, someone's getting an offer, we will reject, and then it'll say preferred other candidate. And that's our means we've already gotten our offer, so we're not gonna look at all the people who've applied, and you'll get your rejection notice. But up until we've given an offer, every resume is looked at. So we look at the way the resume is laid out. So if there are typos, obviously, we'll still actually call you if there's typos, but we'll tell you, dude, there's a typo on your resume. But
right.
like, no typos, lots of thought went into the layout and the design. If a cover letter's there, especially if there's like jumps in the resume, that's important. But things that stand out are if you've taken the time to explain like who you are. One of the beautiful things is that like sometimes a piece of paper doesn't always explain everything. I mean, we just talked about like my background looks, I mean, yes, it's clearly all talent acquisition and recruiting, like it's pretty obvious, but like it looks interesting that I went from an agency to owning my own to a Microsoft partner to IO data centers to an agency to Carvana. Like there's reasons behind those. So explaining the jump is interesting. So definitely creative cover letters, taking thought to look at the layout, and if it looks beautiful and thought out and clear, always stands out. And some personality, like sometimes I'll read a summary, and if the summary says something interesting, and Alan, we also talked about this, why women don't apply for jobs unless they're 100% a fit. There's that statistic that
it's a crazy stat.
It's a crazy stat that says women are more selective. Research shows that a man will apply to a job if he meets 60% of the qualifications, but a woman will only apply if she meets 100% of the qualifications. So like after I pick up the pieces of my mind that was blown off the floor and finish laughing at that statistic.
Well, and I want to ask you something about that. So that brings up a great point. So I know a little bit about the Carvana process, and I know a little bit about how diligent you guys are with your hiring managers to make sure that you've fully qualified the role.
Yep.
But you and I were talking before we went live with this. You know, back in the day, you know, recruiters were looked at as partners, you know, on both sides, on the candidate side as well as on the client side. Whether you're a corporate recruiter or not, you were just looked at as valuable. Yep. And I think part of the reason that perception has changed is because oftentimes the job descriptions now feel very bloated. You know, people are looking for every single thing, and candidates get very dismayed when they see that, and they either punch out or they say, I'm not, you know, I don't have but half of these skills that they're looking for, and most people wouldn't have all of these skills. So why should I even bother? And they almost get angry, you know, or some of them actually do. So what do you say to those candidates who, you know, see that as just I can't even talk to this recruiter right now because they're just not even understanding that this person doesn't exist?
Well, so that's two things. It's sort of like what we talked about before. It's like on the one side, the recruiter has to be strong enough to tell their hiring manager, man, like, hey, you're probably not going to get all that. Like, set expectations with your hiring manager. You're asking for a unicorn. You're probably not going to get all that. I'm going to show you so many candidates that have, dude, if I get it, great, cool. But if I don't, I'm going to show you what can come in at most of it. And then I call it the Property Brothers analogy. If you ever watch the show Property Brothers, with one of their favorite tactics to do, and when they have a couple that's looking for a house, they show them what the house looks like that has all the features they want, and they get the person bought in, like, oh my God, this is gorgeous. Like, yeah, it's gorgeous. It's $8 million. You too can have this for $8 million. But here's what is your budget, right? And we do the Property Brothers analogy. So you have to be really like careful with your hiring managers and set expectations from the beginning that this is probably what it's actually going to look like. So that's on that side.
Right.
With the candidates, I would still say, go ahead and apply. Because if you're the person saying, there's no effing way, man, so is everybody else, right? If you truly believe that unicorn isn't out there, that must, if that's the actual case, that the unicorn isn't out there, let's assume that they're not.
Yep.
That's true. So let's say 100 applicants apply, maybe there's one out of that 100, but the other 99 are just like you. So it's going to come to a point where Carvana is going to look at the 99, narrow it down to the 5, and that 5, it's going to be who fits what. And at Carvana, it's not just who fits the actual like black and white requirements of the job. At Carvana, it's about a culture fit, and it's about who fits our 7 core values, which is for us just as important as actually who fits the requirements, the black and white requirements too.
Right.
So, and you never know, like it's a personality fit. Like it is a really big deal. We're more likely at Carvana personally to hire someone who has that drive and that creativity like, and has 80% of the job requirements versus someone who has 100%, but they're like really like dry and boring and like can't roll with the operating in the gray and the creativity that Carvana is, because you got to be like, Carvana's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
So,
well, I want to come back to the creativity
sure.
question in a second.
Sure.
But I want to remind everybody, so we've got a bunch of people here. I want to remind everybody, please use chat. Please use the Q&A function. If you have any questions whatsoever, interrupt. I've got my list of questions, but I'd very much love to hear, and I know Kiara would as well from this group. So please throw your questions in there. So we talked in previous sessions on banding together about, a candidate is in the interview, they're asked a question that they don't necessarily have a very distinctive answer to, or they don't know the answer to the question. Yeah. And this is an opportunity also for people to stand out. During that interview process, if you're asked a question you don't have an answer to, how do you advise not only a candidate who's going through your process, and maybe it's post, maybe it's after the fact, you would say, hey, next time you're asked this, but how do you handle that?
So you really, that's awesome that you brought it up that way. So I don't know if you have ever sat in on like seen Ernie, our CEO, interviewed or heard our earnings calls or anything. It's a very, and I was going to touch on this in the earlier question, how recruiters are handled at Carvana. It's like a top-down thing. At Carvana, our recruiters and recruiting leaders are treated very much like valued business partners. Like, we have a seat at the table. Like, what we say like goes. Like, we are treated like, dude, if they said that, they know what they're talking about. You kind of got to listen, because they're the expert at that thing. And so our top-down mental like ethos at Carvana is own your shit. Like, if you don't know what you're saying, and if you don't know, just say, man, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I'll figure that out for you. I'm not going to be able to answer that clearly right now. If I ask a candidate a question in an interview and that person doesn't know, or they're just not qualified to say, if you, Alan, ask me a question in this interaction, I would say, shit, I don't know. Like, I'm not, you know what? I know Ellen's way smarter than me on that. So I'm going to ask Ellen, and I'm going to call you back after this is over. Like, so I would say to a candidate at Carvana, it is like one of our core values is be brave. Like, nice. Be brave. Like, even if it means getting out of your comfort zone, don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to say, I don't know. So if you would say, if a candidate says it, just say, hey, Kiara, I'm so sorry. I don't know. And I would hate to misquote or like lead you. I don't know. Now, what I can say is I've done something like this at another job where I had to kind of get somewhere here, but I'll be honest, I wasn't the main person responsible for making that decision. I was one of 5 people that had to come up with this part. Does that help? If not, I can't answer. So right. I'm sorry. Call it.
Perfect. Yeah, yep. That is consistent. We've been saying consistently, say I don't know.
I don't know.
Have some sort of solution to the I don't know. Not that you don't know and you don't care.
Right.
That's not good.
Yeah. You don't care is the crap part, but I don't know is perfectly okay to say.
Right. Okay, perfect. What are your thoughts on, so you mentioned creativity a little bit ago, and we were talking about resume and flow and everything like that. The applicant tracking systems are tough these days. So if somebody tries to get creative, let's say they try to get creative with their resume, which a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of that. I know there are a lot of people who are, but how do they show creativity in that early of a phase? Just through a resume or a cover letter, what would be your recommendation on how to show that they are a creative-minded person in that format?
Well, again, Emily did it with the only reason why I loved that Emily did it, she do that through that one line in there, but she didn't keep getting all, she did the one line, but she didn't keep it going, because then it would have just been like sticky.
Yeah.
It wasn't a shtick. It was that one line. She used it appropriately, and then the rest of it was very like professional and like very clearly laid out. So it's usually the cover letter and then maybe the summary. Like we're interviewing right now for an associate director of HR operations, and someone in her summary yesterday, I was reading resumes, had written a very clear summary, which is only like 3 sentences, but in the summary it said something like a very driven person who will make sure that make sure to cover all the HR, all the employment laws, but also will make you laugh while we do it.
There you go.
That was it. She didn't go on in that vein, but she put it in there. I read it and I was like, okay, it was a balance there.
Right. Yeah. HR laws are not usually funny, but if you
they're
can
not.
laugh.
And she made it, but she wanted me to know that she understands that they're not, but she was going to acknowledge it. It doesn't have to be dry all the time.
Right. That's awesome. I like it.
Yeah.
So back to applicant tracking systems.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if you don't see a post a day at least on LinkedIn about how to navigate or circumvent applicant tracking systems, it's kind of a shock.
Yeah.
But what is your recommendation? I mean, people trying to get your attention or any of your recruiters' attention. What is? I know there's no trick. You know, there's no trick.
There isn't.
What is the way in which people, you know, should navigate that, or should, you know, discard or dispel any myths about the applicant tracking system?
Okay, I'm going to use an analogy like, okay, you know how like sometimes you walk into like, and this is maybe more like, every human has insecurities. Like if you walk into a party and you don't like what you're wearing and you feel like everybody's looking at what you're wearing and like they're like talking about your outfit. Meanwhile, you go home and everybody at that party did not give a shit about what you were wearing.
Right.
Because it's in your head. I am telling you, especially in a fast growing company like Carvana, which is growing 100% year over year, we are not even thinking about that. Here's what we're thinking. Holy shit, we have to staff 400 positions in a week. We want the best talent so that this is how we think. We're selling so many cars to consumers a week, which means those cars need to be out of the inspection center by this time. And to do that, this many people have to work at the inspection center, which means we have to hire this many people. That's how we're thinking about it. So we need to hire this many people, which means we have to look at this many people have to be hired, which means this many people have to be interviewed, which means this many applications have to go through, and they have to be good applicants. And we can't waste our busy people, like our busy hiring leaders don't have time to interview people unless they're good. So we really just want good people to go through, which means 22 pre-screens a day on the phone. Please God, let them just be good. So we're not thinking about that. We're reading all the resumes. Please let them be good. Please let them be good. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's no trick. Have your resume be accurate. Please don't lie on your resume. And most of Carvana's jobs require a bachelor's degree. Don't lie about it.
Yeah.
Lots of our jobs require that you have an active driver's license. You have to be able to drive, because we drop off cars in someone's driveway. Like, duh, like, you know what I mean? Like, don't lie. Make sure your resume is accurate, because we do a verification, obviously, because you're going to, again, deliver a 1-ton item to someone's driveway. And if you're a customer advocate, you have to go through 6 weeks of training, memorizing every single thing about a car. So just have it be real and accurate, because we're reading, because it really matters to us that we are not wasting everybody's time. It's so precious. We need time. And our recruiters are stretched so thin. So like every candidate we talk to is so important to us, and there's hundreds. So that's really it. So you're worried about like circumventing the system. We're not. We're trying to drive more people into that system, and we want to talk to more people. Don't even worry about it. We're not worried about what you wore to the party.
Yeah.
We just want it to be real. We want your resume to be real, and we want to talk to you. We want it to be a good conversation with a passionate person who is our culture and who have a good time doing something at a company we're super proud of. And that's all we're worried about.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Don't worry about what you wore to the party, or nobody cares what you wore to the party.
Nobody cares what you wore. Just be cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about the jumps in a resume, and I wanted to ask you real quick, because a lot of people right now are thinking now would be a good opportunity to make a career change.
Yeah.
You know? I got laid off, I got furloughed, I, was going down this path for a long period of time. And now suddenly I find myself looking for a new opportunity. I should try this because I've been thinking about this for the last 5 to 10 years.
For sure.
How do they get the attention of someone like yourself? I mean, how does somebody who's making that career transition into something, maybe they have very little experience, maybe they have some education or some background in, but not a lot. Is that something that you guys look at? I mean, do you take people in, a variety of your roles, maybe that are rookie and looking to grow?
Yes and no. We were better, I don't want to say better. We were more able to do it when we were smaller, because I have to say, so when I started at Carvana 3.5 years ago, we had 850 people nationwide. Like the whole company was 850 people, and now we're 8,800. It was like crazy town. And I could look at a resume and be like, oh, they would be good here. Let's create a job for them. It was like dreamland. But you can't really do that now. Now it's more like, we need this thing done at Carvana.
Right.
We need it done. So it's almost like whatever else you've done in your career, cool, but you need to meet the requirements for what we need to have done.
Right.
So let's say, it happens a lot at Carvana, especially with our customer advocate role. If you don't mind, it's a call center role. But if you've done, I don't know, it doesn't matter. A lot of people who've sold cars at a dealership come to us and we're like, okay, no, it's one of our taglines. We sell cars, but we're not car salesmen. So we don't have a sales role for you because there's literally no dealership.
Right.
But if you want to do something completely different and you want to make blank an hour, sure, go for the customer advocate role. You're going to take inbound calls only and answer questions 1 million times a day, but sure, as long as you have that customer service, vibe, we'll do it. It really is, we don't care what you're doing or what you've done, as long as you meet the requirements of the role. So yes, as long as you meet the requirements, we'll consider you. Unfortunately, we can't really just consider people who've never done something just because they want to do something cool. I love that. We can try. We have a strategic partnerships team that sometimes, if you've sold something more in a product space or business to business sales, sometimes that can translate over depending on what track our strategic partnerships wants to go. And strategic partnerships is I don't know, you work with a company to put Carvana branded floor mats in every car we sell, something where we're doing different lines. That's highly simplistic, but we can do something like that. But really, you have to still meet the requirements of the job because you still have to be qualified, period.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the other things that you may get this question all the time, I know I do, but in our industry, there's a saying, post and pray. Post a job and just pray that people apply. But there's a lot of candidates that will apply and they'll say, I'm doing everything I know how to do. I applied to 50 jobs today or 60 jobs today or whatever. And they leave it at that. They send in their application and then they, Wednesday comes around, they send in their application, Thursday comes around, and that's what they do every day.
Yep.
How do those people, is there a follow-up plan? Is there a strategy that you would recommend, especially as it relates to you and your team at Carvana, that they should employ in order to get the attention?
Well, first of all, I would say to those candidates, apply to jobs that within reason you are qualified for.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, if your resume shows that you've kind of, I don't even say jumped around. It isn't about tenure at those jobs, but you might have done something a little different here or something here, or you've done project management, or you've been a software developer. Maybe have 2 different resumes, one that focuses more on project management, one that focuses more on software development, and use those resumes to apply to the appropriate jobs. Or if you've done both at a job, or at your jobs, maybe have one resume where it focuses mostly on the software development first, and then an additional bullet point is the project management stuff you've done. You know what I'm saying? Make the resume really focus on the job you're going for. That's my first bit of advice for the candidate in terms of the content of the resume. Second, if you want to just work at Carvana, if that's it's not about the function of the job, but Carvana is magically the company that you've decided you want to work for. It's the cover letter. It is the, hey, and then a lot of times people will follow up by sending me a message on LinkedIn. We have a different job posted now for a senior manager of talent and talent development over our inspection centers. So one of the recruiters on my team is actually the recruiter responsible for that role. But people have enterprisingly found out that that's under my purview. So I have been getting the LinkedIn messages. I read every single LinkedIn message, and I've read what these people have said. So I try to help if the person's just like not a fit, I'll send the person a message that says, hey, I see that you've applied. I don't think that you're going to be a fit, but I'm still going to forward it to my recruiter, and I'll tag my recruiter in our ATS, and I'll say, hey, Eleanor, this person's applied. Love the proactive reach out.
Right.
And I'll say to the person, hey, thanks for the proactive. You've now shown us you are proactively going after this job. And since this is a talent acquisition job, that's one of the main aspects of being in recruiting. Love it. But I'm going to get back to that in a minute. So that's the other thing, the proactive part. Please, Eleanor, take a look. If this person's completely not a fit, please send a personal rejection email. But if they're at all a fit, please give them 15 minutes because he was cool enough to reach out, aggressive enough to reach out to me and find a different avenue to reach out. So I love the multi-prong approach. Now, don't go crazy and blow me up like it's like.
That's what I was going to say. How much is too much?
So I like to apply online through the ATS with probably a cover letter. Second, the LinkedIn outreach. Even if you say, hey, Chiara, I'm not sure you're the right person, any help would be appreciated, or please forward me to the next person. You don't need to go nuts with that, but if you could try. And maybe if you get 800 LinkedIn messages a day, you won't respond. But again, once a recruiter, always a recruiter. I check my LinkedIn all the time. That's who I am. Which brings me to the point I said I was going to get back to, which is, think about the function of the role, right? This happens to be a recruiting role. So if this person is demonstrating an aspect of a personality that is key to that role, I'm going to reward the aspect of the personality that's key to the role we're trying to hire.
Yep.
If I'm trying to hire an aggressive person who's supposed to lead a team of recruiters, I'm going to reward the personality that I'm trying to hire.
Right.
So it made sense in this case. Yeah. Right? Maybe not for an accountant who is supposed to be we don't depend on that person to be as extroverted. But in this case, we do want this person to lead a team and be extroverted and drive things forward, and he's driving his career forward. So good for him.
Should the accountant reach out that way too?
Sure. Why not? I'm just saying it's not as expected. But sure. I think everybody should. I mean, you're trying to get a job. Yeah. No one's going to get a job for you but you. I also really believe in your network. Tap into your network. That's what this is about. That's what LinkedIn, that's why LinkedIn went from a networking platform. Now LinkedIn is a recruiting platform.
Right.
It's rebranded itself.
Big time.
Yeah. So that's the answer here. I would do the ATS, I would do the LinkedIn follow-up, and then I would reach out to the network and say, I got a LinkedIn message yesterday. Hey, Chiara, blank told me I should reach out to you. Meanwhile, I know the person, love that person. I don't know this candidate, but he's pulling his levers, right?
Yep.
And banking on the fact that hey, Alan Plunkett said I should reach out to you, and I love Alan Plunkett, so okay.
Right.
Right?
So you've mentioned cover letter several times.
Yep.
Do you expect a cover letter with every candidate?
No, it also depends. If you're going for a customer advocate job, maybe for, $16, $17, $18 an hour, maybe not. I always like it. It's great because it shows a polish. But if you're going for an associate director role, maybe you should.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, especially if your resume isn't an obvious fit.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the key. That's the thing that you mentioned a few times. Any jumps or, anything that you need to clarify. And I do like the recommendation of having a couple different versions of the resume too. Yeah, I think that's often missed, and it's one of those things that we tell people all the time. You can't have one. It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Ever.
No, and it's never going to cover everything you do. The other myth I wish people would get rid of is resumes should be no longer than 2 pages long.
Yeah.
Now, should they be 20 pages? No. But if everything you've done in a career like ours, that's maybe 20 plus years, maybe not. Maybe your older jobs, maybe only 3 bullet points each, but it doesn't have to just be 2 pages, especially if that can't possibly contain everything you've done. Like, again, I don't want to see 20 pages, but 2 pages is often not quite enough.
Yeah. When your team and yourself are following up with people, now you guys have great name recognition, but going back in time,
we didn't always.
Yeah, that's true. So going back in time, and you call a candidate and you say, hey, you applied to a job that we had at Carvana, and they don't immediately have recall on applying for that job. Is that a nix? Is that like a detrimental thing for them in any way? Okay.
No. Again, Carvana's like really so we still, up until very recently, people still love to really not like Carvana. They do. Lately, it's been a little different, but
why do people like to not love Carvana?
They just don't. Actually, I don't want to misquote this. There is a Gandhi quote that we use all the time because it's very, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. It's a Gandhi quote. And Carvana is still in the fight you. They ignored us and laughed at us for so long. They just people, even when we go to the, when Ernie, our CEO, goes to the National NADA, NADA, National Association, National blah, 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 Dealership Association, they don't treat him very nicely.
Wow.
Yeah, people just don't want to like us. They just don't. And so here's what's beautiful about it. It has kept us like so humble. Like it really has. Like people throw other tech companies money. Like they're throwing us money now. For the first 6 years, they wouldn't give us crap, right? So like, so the difference is like, I'll say, oh, we're calling from, hey, my name's Chiara. I'm calling from Carvana. You applied to our front-end developer job. Especially with developers who have a jillion options right now, they'll be like, yeah, I don't remember applying to that job. We're like, oh, okay, what was like in April? Sorry, we just got around to it because of COVID. They're like, well, what's the job? We just talk about it. Like, it doesn't matter to us. We don't care. Again, we don't care what you're wearing to the party. Right. It doesn't matter. It's about the job. Yeah. Keep it about the job because that's the most objective way to keep it.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So, I mean, what about, everything that's going on right now? Have you guys seen an uptick in applicants, like dramatic uptick in applicants? I mean, you're on the technology side, so I'm guessing, it's a little bit. What have you seen? I mean, what is the sense that you're getting right now?
Well, so I have to answer that in 2 separate ways. So sure. I'm over corp and tech. In corporate, I've seen a dramatic uptake in applicants for sure, because more people are out of a job. So we've had a ridiculous amount of applications for every corporate job that we posted. On the corporate side, yeah. On the corporate side. In tech, not as much for a couple reasons. So now, thanks to Twitter, Google, and a bunch of other companies saying, forever and always you can work from home. Like, they're now saying to all their employees and to like everywhere, from now on until, well, some are to the end of the year, but some of them are saying forever, you can work from home. So now Carvana, we are on a work from home policy till the end of the year, for sure. We are evaluating what we're going to do 2021 going forward for our engineers, where they're going to work, right? We don't know. Right. But we're now competing. One of the biggest issues, one of our biggest ways to woo people to come to Phoenix was come here and actually be able to buy a house for your family. Well, now Silicon Valley people can work for a Silicon Valley company and not have to live there.
Yeah.
So it's making it harder, but I think what's going to catch up in Silicon Valley is the people in Silicon Valley used to pay those people $250,000 for being a 4-year engineer are going to say, well, now you don't have to live here, so now I don't have to pay you $250.
Right.
They haven't done it yet, but I think that pendulum is going to correct itself in 2021.
Yep.
And if it doesn't, they're dumb. But yes, you had to work in Silicon Valley, but you got paid to compensate for that. But now if they're saying you don't have to work there, they're not going to pay you the cost of living differential.
Right.
So I think there's going to be this weird, interesting shift in tech in 2021 with geography as a function, which is going to shift what Carvana has to do to mitigate that in 2021. So that being said, yes, there's still candidates. Our conversion rate for offer to acceptance is pretty high, because again, Carvana's core values, our 7 core values, are pretty rad. And when we fly you out to meet with us, again, it's very subjective. If my personality appeals to you, Carvana's a lot like me. We're very transparent. This is how we are. Right? The CEO talks like I do. We're just like, yeah, dude, I don't know. Fuck it. Like, you know what I mean? Right. Yeah. If you like that personality, you're fine. If you like a more stiff, like, I don't know, I need to talk to 17 bureaucrats about how to make a decision, you're not going to fit at Carvana, right?
Right.
Thank God, most engineers are more no BS, so it works. So we've seen a lot of candidates. We've been fortunate, but our competition is high now because of every tech company saying, we'll give you whatever you want and you can work from home for whatever. But it's a weird time because a lot of companies have slowed down drastically in hiring because of COVID. So it's like a weird bubble.
Right. So having said all that, I mean, you know, you have corporate positions that are open, you have technology positions that are open, you're getting, you know, massive amount of candidates. Would you say that the speed to hire is the same, or are you slowing down the speed to hire because you have so many more people that you want to get through?
Speed to hire is the same.
It's the same.
We because our SLA and commitment to our consumer is the same, and that's how it goes. Like, so again, you're gonna, you know what I mean, like ad nauseum, I keep saying our 7 core values because again, I'm choking on the Kool-Aid, but our 7 core values are huge to us, and our first core value is your next customer may be your mom. And our whole thing is we need to build a company our mothers would be proud of, and our customer is our mom. That's it. And everything goes, the funnel is the mom. That's the point. So getting everything to the customer in a safe, positive, timely manner is the number one thing. So it all trickles from that. And to do that, we have to get people hired.
Yeah.
Period. That's it. So time to fill stays the same for Carvana. It doesn't matter how many people we're hiring. It could be 2 people or 2,000. It has to be quick.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, you just brought up such an amazing point on, you know, how the work from home is going to change so many things. Do you envision that Carvana will say, you know, the same thing, or are you guys have a lot of real estate, so I'm guessing you're probably going to stay in an office, is my guess.
It's interesting. So some of the things I actually literally and legally cannot comment on. Here's what I will say. We have a lot of gorgeous real estate at Carvana. We need the space anyway, because with health and safety, CDC guidelines, the people that physically have to go into an office need the space.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that. What I will also say is we have been able to be very productive working from home, and that we are going to evaluate what makes sense for Carvana. Literally, we have an entire health and safety committee that we have formed quickly that literally meets with CDC representative. Like, we are like on it. So it changes. It's a lot.
Right.
Yep.
So in April, you guys probably stalled or froze or came close to it anyway. I don't know how many positions you had posted that you suddenly came to a screeching halt.
Yep.
Where are you today? I mean, with the positions that you have posted, what are you seeing, like, you know, as we wrap up June and head into July and August?
Tech is almost, it's slow, but here's the thing. Right prior to COVID, my tech recruiting team, because they're rad, had hired like 60 net new engineers, like, which is like really, really, really hard to do. 60 net new software engineers, like by like January 1st. We had just done it. Like, everybody's like raving about it. It was great. So we were in a pretty good spot. Again, by chance, right?
Right.
Corporate is picking up because again, it's a function. Operations recruiting right now, on like Donkey Kong. If you like look at our postings, it's like boom, they're dying. Our operations recruiters are like freaking out. And so it's like a ripple effect. If we're trying to get, because people are buying our cars like crazy. So we need all those positions staffed, right? So the operations is happening. So when you hire more line leads and truck drivers and market operations people, you need the HR and corporate infrastructure and legal to support that.
Right.
So that the corporate opens up. So
it's a beautiful thing.
It's an interesting thing. I told my recruiting team when that happened and there was like this slowdown, I was like, you guys enjoy the breather. You guys haven't had a breather in years. Literally, you haven't breathed. Like, they operate at a high level of stress. Like, chill. I mean, you've come into our office.
Oh yeah.
You've seen what it's like. It's like
spinning tops all over the place.
Yeah, everybody's like freaking out. Like everybody's running around like they're dying all the time. And it's like, just take this moment. You're gonna like I'm like, just enjoy this for what it is. It sucks. It's crappy circumstances. I wish it weren't for bad reasons, but yeah.
Yeah. Last question I have for you, Chiara, but I do want to encourage, everyone listening in, please share any questions that you have. What I have contended since, late March, early April, is that it seems like a lot of people are coming together, like this banding together deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, have you seen that? I mean, you're in an ultra competitive industry. Are you guys seeing that, swords are being put down, or people are collaborating or having more, conversations about what they're doing and how they're navigating than you saw in the past? Got it. All right. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So we have a, so again, second core value is we're all in this together. And that one's like the more trite one because everybody's been saying that. Like that's like the hashtag of the pandemic, right?
Right.
But like that's like Ernie's like big one. And like, so for at least 2 of the months of the situation, our board members, our executive team, and most of our leadership, we've donated our salaries to everybody who was on furlough. So in order to not lay anybody off, we put some of our teams, and I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm not going to say certain things, but we donated our salaries. Our executive team donated 100% of their salaries for months. So did our entire board of directors. And that money was literally divvied up and sent directly to the people who were on furlough. In addition to that, and again, I don't know what I can disclose, but there were literally like teams of people that we hired, and within 1 week, COVID happened, and they went on 50%. So my title is head of, but internally I have a different title. There was a group of us that adopted them and shipped out. We found out what their favorite things were and shipped them to their door. So they had like care packages of what they needed for things. Like, and I'm not patting myself on, it just happened to be I'm in that group of people, but like there were drive-by baby showers. There were drive-by birthdays. I was one of them. There were drive-by, like, I have never, and I'm not saying that's just, I mean, that was Carvana because I was part of it, but like, yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's great. That is great.
And I've noticed it out in the world, like, I think it's been great. Like, I hate the circumstances under which this stuff came about.
Yeah.
But like, I just, kindness is still out there.
It is.
Sorry.
No, you're good, Chiara. You're good. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you being here. We've got a few comments on the Q&A and just people saying this is an amazing discussion. So, and I agree. And I really can't thank you enough, Chiara, for being
I'm an acquired taste.
I'm so grateful for our friendship, our relationship. I'm grateful for the time today.
Me too.
And yeah, I mean, that last few seconds was certainly probably the best advertisement for anyone who wants to work at Carvana I could ever imagine. You know, to have that kind of emotion about how the leadership team has reacted to everything going on right now. It's
they're just so good. Like I don't mean to like turn into a Carvana leadership commercial, but like the way they've handled everything has just been like so smart and so graceful and so humble and so thoughtful. Like on our last like earnings call, like they were starting to ask Ernie questions about like the earnings, because that's the job, like he has to do it. He spent the first 10-15 minutes talking about us and like the We're All in This Together fund and like what we've done to support each other as leaders and to support each other and to like raise up the people that needed help. Like that's how he literally spent the first 15 minutes of this call, which is to the major investors. Like I just, yeah.
It's amazing. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, it is. It's a good place.
That's awesome.
I'm so glad I got to talk, and I'm so glad I got to see you. And I hope everybody listening is safe and healthy and that you at least got something out of this. And I hope I was helpful in some way.
You were awesome, Chiara. You were awesome. And thank you again for being here. Was there anything else you wanted to share before we go?
Nope, just any time, especially if anybody needs help or anything, find me on LinkedIn, or if there's any questions or anything I can help with in any way, especially in any humanitarian effort, or if someone needs help with the bigger questions, obviously reach out through Alan or me or anything. I just, you know, we just all, kindness is out there, and it's you can spread it.
Exactly.
With little things. So yeah.
Exactly. Well, yeah, you and I are easy to find.
We are.
We're not tough to track down.
It's not the other Chiara.
That's awesome. Chiara, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
So good to see you.
You too.
Bye, everybody. Soon.